Sometimes the best knife designs are the simplest. You don't have to be all super crazy to make something that is truly good. That's something that Ferramonster has learned in their recent releases, because they've all been super successful. But can they continue on that trend? Today we're going to find out, because we've got a brand new release from our friends over at Ferramonster, and this very well might be in your wheelhouse. Let's go ahead and talk about the brand new Ferramonster Valken. Ferramonster is coming in hot with a brand new release, and guys, I'm excited because it's been a hot minute since I've had a Ferramonster on the desk. In fact, the last time was months and months and months ago when I reviewed the Ferramonster Aurora Rays, and I loved that knife, and you guys loved that knife so much where that was, I'm pretty sure, their best-selling model, and it sold out multiple times in the last year, which is crazy. But what we're looking for now is, can they do it again? They've done a great job so far of enticing the community with a multitude of great models that have been a hit after a hit after a hit. But what about this one? This is the brand new Valken, and it's actually really, really cool. I've had this now in my possession for, I want to say, the last 4 or 5 days, and it has definitely been one that I've enjoyed carrying. I carried it when I took it out to do photography. I've carried it around the house. I've taken it out with me. I've cut up some stuff to test the edge and the blade geometry. And overall, I've got to say that this is a rather cool knife. But you might be wondering, what's the skinny? What's the details? And most importantly, what does it cost? So it's going to come in at just shy of 8 inches. It's about 7.95, which means that it's squarely classified as a full-size knife. 3.5 of that is going to be this belt satin finished M390 blade, which is kind of reminiscent of the Chris Reeve Umnumzon blade shape. It's a drop point harpoon. Yeah, it's kind of similar there. Definitely not a copy by any stretch, but it's good looking. That's an attractive blade shape. I'm a big fan of what they've done there. And also I like the fact that we have multi-directional satin finish. So we've got, you know, a horizontal satin on the flat and then a regular vertical satin on the regular primary bevel. Now you might notice that it comes complementary with fingerprints. It's a fingerprint magnet. That's just kind of the stock and trade of a belt satin finish. It looks great when it's clean, but it will collect your fingerprints faster than you collect knives. The handle scales are titanium, and you get it with a multitude of different fat carbon fiber inlays. This one's my favorite. This is the Mars Valley fat carbon fiber inlay, and it is on both sides, framing this single-sided captive pivot. On the show side, we've got speed holes, and we're going to get to that here in a minute to offer some weight relief. But on the handle scale specifically, it's this black stonewash, which is really nice, and it complements that fat carbon very, very well. You might notice that it's got some body screws. Those body screws are, in fact, T8 hardware. We've got T8 hardware everywhere. T8 on the body screws, T8 on the pivot, T8 on the lock bar insert, because this is, of course, a frame lock. And speaking of it being a frame lock, how's the lockup? It's going to be coming in there around 25%. There's no wiggle or jiggle. That is solid. Blade centering on here is perfect, but you know what? In 2025, I just come to expect that. I'd be very concerned if it wasn't centered and locked out. We've got 2 deployment options. We've got a flipper tab and then these double-sided thumb studs. On the deployment, I will say this, the detent ball is crisp, and it is a bit on the heavier side, and that is going to be tuned more towards that flipper tab. So you can really load up on that. And I'm telling you guys, I've not been able to fail this flipper tab action. It has a lot to do with the retention on that detent being tuned towards this flipper tab. Even if you have the limpest wrist in the world, the moment it overcomes that detent, it's coming out. Now, the thumb studs are double-sided, which means that reverse flick is there. And of course, the thumb flick is also there. You do have to give it a bit of pressure, but it allows you to build up that pressure behind the detent until it breaks free and it flicks out with authority.
Respect my authority!
We have some jimping here on the spine of the blade. It's not the most jimping in the world. It's just enough to index with your thumb and create a nice bit of pressure between your thumb and your index finger for a beautiful grip. This being a full-size knife, I've got absolutely no issues getting a full 4-finger grip, and it feels good in the reverse grip as well. They did a great job on the ergonomics here, especially for a slab style construction. There's no contouring here, but there is some good chamfering and all the edges are very well knocked down. So all of this, you might be thinking, oh, it's about 250 bucks. And you know what? If you were looking at this at any other time other than right now, you might be right, because the normal price for this is about 250 bucks. And that's pretty standard for a knife of this build, but right now they have a sale, so they're going for $203. But if that wasn't good enough, I also have a 10% discount code, which is Rollshambo. So you can take an extra 10% off, which brings this to $183. $183 for this is a really screaming good price, guys. And you know what? If you're watching this saying, you know, that's cool, but I'd much rather have this other knife that they make, you can use that same code to take 10% off of anything in their inventory right now. So if you want an Aurora Raise, you could take 10% off that. If you want a Glideman, you could take 10% off that. If you want a Ferox or a Spectrum or an Urban Grip, you could take 10% off all of that. It's a good deal. And right now, especially with this sale, it's a really, really good deal. The market for titanium frame locks is stiff, so companies really have to bring their A game when they come out with a titanium frame lock these days, because there's just so many offerings, even in the sub $200 realm. But you don't see a whole lot of the titanium and fat carbon fiber combinations in this price range. And this one is very well executed. The action, it's great. It feels really good, and it makes some nice noises too. You really hear that detent engage on the lockup when you close it, and it's perfectly guillotined, perfectly drop shut each and every single time. Listen to this. Those are some absolutely fantastic acoustics. But in case you're trying to carry this as more than an adult fidget spinner, how does she cut? The edge geometry on here is pretty decent. The factory edge is also very decent. I put this through some cardboard and I was not disappointed at all. It features a flat ground blade, and that flat ground blade does not disappoint. It's decently thin behind the edge. I won't say it's the thinnest knife I've ever sliced with, but it's thin enough to slice, but it's also thick enough behind the edge to provide some extra edge stability. You're not really going to be worrying about this one chipping or breaking when you're putting it through the latest rope or cardboard. Now's the time where we talk about the things that I would change or the things that I'm not the biggest fan of. The first thing I would change is the speed holes, and believe it or not, it's not because I dislike them. It's because as a business decision in 2025, choosing to mill out speed holes is a bit of a risk. You see, there are two kinds of people when it comes to speed holes: people that absolutely hate them and will not buy a knife that has this milling pattern, and the people that just don't care. I don't think I've ever met someone that says, you know what I really want on my next knife? I want speed holes. I want the speed hole cutout. But there's either the people that hate them or the people that are just kind of ambivalent about them. So that's why I believe that going with speed hole milling on the handle scales is a bit of a risk, because you have to entice as many people as you can, and they could have gone a different direction. They could have left it blank, because this stonewash black finish on these handle scales is really, really gorgeous. It makes this carbon fiber pop. Or they could have gone with something like a frag mill pattern on the handle scales, or even a fine stepped milling. All of that would have been a safer bet than going with speed holes. And let me know in the comment section. Prove me wrong. Are you someone that searches out knives with this milling pattern, or are you part of team I hate speed holes? It doesn't really detract from the knife for me, but it's also not something that I look for in a knife. The next thing I would say is worth changing or considering changing is these thumb studs. Now, these aren't awful thumb studs, but they are slender, and because it has a strong detent tuned towards the flipper tab, these thinner thumb studs, you notice the pressure when you put the pressure on, and it is something to keep an eye out for, because if you accidentally put a little bit too much pressure on that lock bar, you will feel it on deployment. Now, it doesn't take long to get used to these thumb studs at all, and utilizing them is not an issue at all, but they could have made the thumb studs a little bit more comfortable if they had made them a little bit wider and maybe moved them over just a little bit over there to the left. Yeah. And then, of course, the last thing that I would change would be to add in an ambidextrous pocket clip setting. You'll notice this is right hand tip up carry only. So lefties, I'm sorry. Let me know in the comment section down below. Are you a lefty that's disappointed that they don't have a left-handed version of this, or at least a ambidextrous pocket clip? And trust me when I say that I get why they didn't do it. They didn't do it because they have these speed holes right here. I, for one, think it would have been a smarter move to have placed an ambidextrous pocket clip setting right here and just gotten rid of the speed holes entirely. I think that that would have made way more people way more happy. But again, if you agree with me, make sure to smash that like button. Guys, what do you think of the brand new Ferramonster Valken? This one at $183, in my opinion, is an absolute banger. But now it's time for the people to be heard. Let's have that conversation in the comment section down below, guys. If you liked the video and you haven't done so yet, please consider subscribing. But if you just want to watch some more awesome knife and EDC content, feel free to click on one of the videos that pops up next.